All right, what's up, everybody? Good out there? Hope the mic's good. Hope the camera's good. Hope everybody's doing all right on a Saturday night. Thanks for joining. Figured we'd just go ahead and do a kind of question and answer, an open mic, or just discuss some different things that people want to discuss. Colin, glad you could join. Um, really like the stuff you've been doing on Twitter. I hope law school's going okay. Uh, Interesting fact, I was a criminal justice undergrad and thought I was going to go to law school and decided that I couldn't do 6 more years in college. So I bailed out. And that's when I started coaching as a graduate assistant in college. So good luck to you on your future. Good luck to you with law school. As far as this offseason, I'm now a defensive coordinator only. I'm no longer a head coach. So I've been focusing more on the defensive side of the ball, trying to kind of hash out how I want to play some of our three high stuff and how I want to combine our three high stuff with our split field coverage stuff. And really been trying to do it with the same personnel on the field is what I'm most interested in. Hey, Willie, how you doing, bud? You're getting an influx of all our Florida guys coming up to Georgia to make that big money. So the biggest thing I've been trying to do is at the new school that I'm at is figure out personnel and figure out how we can carry some broken stack stuff, like the Iowa State three high stuff, and then get back into traditional 3-3 stack split field stuff with the same personnel on the field, so that if we do get any 21, any 12, or anything that maybe the broken stack or the tight front stuff can't handle, then we can go back to a more traditional 6-man box and get a few more defenders in the box with the 3-3 stack stuff. So that's really kind of what I've been looking at. It's interesting. You guys mentioned the escort motion stuff. That's huge in the NFL right now. Shanahan and McVay and those guys, they're all running a lot of receiver motions, adding them into the run game and doing a lot of really cool boot stuff off of it. So the escort motion stuff is really cool to look at. And then just kind of studying some things in the passing game. Now that I'm just on defense, I can afford to just kind of check some things out on offense that I want to look at, and just figuring out different ways to get into some different things in the passing game. And then, now that I'm at a new school with a new head coach and he calls the offense, just trying to learn their terminology and how they call things. And, one day down the road, if I ever call offense again, or if I'm ever a head coach again, then maybe their terminology or how they do some things. They shift, trade, and motion a bunch, which was something we never did a lot of. So really interested in looking into that and seeing how that how I can use some of that in the future. So 8-man this coming season is spread offense more or less favorable for an 8-man game, less secondary per receivers, and I love the one-run matchup. I've never coached 8-man football, QS. I wish I could help you. I don't know much schematically about it. I don't know much about the rules about it, so I don't know. I would assume it's more spread orientated, but I can't really tell you that from from experience. I've never coached it before. What do you consider counter solid? And then offense adding how much changes picture makes stack fronts important when playing time. Yeah, obviously you've got to be able to change the fronts. If you're an odd front team, you've got to be able to play some tight stuff and take away interior gaps versus the spread teams. You got to be able to play some shaded stuff or some old, probably what's similar to old school under stuff. And then I like the traditional 3-3 stack stuff with some movement. So, I think you got to be as multiple on defense as the offense is while trying to carry. The key's always been trying to carry the same coverages. So when we went from split field to three high stuff, all the three high stuff was essentially split field coverage with a third safety kind of acting as an extra Mike linebacker in coverage. So it kind of made sense for us to experiment with some of the three high stuff with some of the players that we had. And then the fact that we didn't change any of our coverages. We didn't change terminology. We didn't change how we defended, 2 detached, 3 detached. We didn't change any of those things. So, looking at the big key now is trying to be able to play, because you're going to get, some 21 and some 12 and some 11. And the stuff that maybe sometimes at three high tight front isn't maybe isn't the best against leverage wise if you're getting three-man surfaces. So being able to go from the broken stack to a traditional stack, maybe having a linebacker that can play down and get into some 4-2-5 fronts or some some over fronts and looks like that. So those are the things I'm kind of looking at right now. If we were on offense, we would get as many reps as possible because we would be no huddle in our inside run period. And obviously, the only thing we would have to wait for, depending where we are in the year, is getting the scout team lined up. But usually sometimes what we might do is we might try and go one offensive group against two defensive groups. If we're looking for more reps, maybe one group is an odd front, one group is an even front if we have the right numbers. We script our stuff, and then since we are no huddle, we're going to signal it even in inside run periods. So we feel like the tempo is pretty good that we can get. If I've got a 10-minute inside run period, we should run anywhere from 16 to 18 plays, depending on if we've got it videotaped. We're not going to stop unless there's something that's completely broken that we have to fix. We're going to keep going. We're going to get those reps, and then we're going to use the videotape to coach and correct and do those things. Coaches got to learn how to coach on the fly. That's the biggest thing when you're a tempo team and you're trying to get a lot of reps in practice. Coaches have to learn how to correct things on the fly and not always stop. I think it's hardest for the O-line guys that always want to stop and break things down, but eventually they get used to it. And then if we have to, we'll stop. Otherwise, we're going to go as fast as we can. If we're on defense, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to have our defense against two offensive huddles and, scout books to where one group is in the huddle getting a play so they know what to do. The other group's running a play. Defense will now go in a tempo period from that play over to the other hash mark and defend a play. So to me, it's all about maximizing time and reps. And you got to have good coaches and your scout books detailed. And then you got to have some players that understand how to run, how to run a scout team. If you can't get any snaps, then you just do it without snaps and you start with the quarterback getting the football, because at the end of the day, the reps are the most important. So you don't want to waste time with shotgun snaps or under center snaps. So a lot of times we might just start with the quarterback with the ball, and then our defensive line has to work on get offs and staying on side and other things in individual periods or other periods, because you can't waste time blowing snaps. So how did you ID your H-back sets formations? We have a program never use H-backs, but we need it. I would call backfield sets. So if we had a two-back set in, it might be a strong set or a weak set. It might be a king set. It might be, near or far. Sometimes when we were stacked, we would go with a near or far set, and that would tell both backs to be stacked near to the twins or far from the twins. If I wanted to split them, sometimes it was when we were in the pistol, it used to be strong or weak. That would tell the H back to go to the strong side of the formation or the weak side. If we were kind of doing some sidecar stuff, it might be king and queen. So king is the same thing as strong, except the tailback is in a sidecar opposite the H back, and then queen would be the same thing as weak, except the tailback is sidecar opposite the H back. So that's always how I've done it in my system. We've always in our two back sets. And then if the H is a hybrid guy, when we're in one back, he's got to know where to line up. And it's usually away from the strength in 2x2. And then if it's 3x1, he's the adjuster that goes over to the 3x1 side. Duo from 20 personnel. We never changed our rules in duo, regardless of the front. So we treated it as a gap scheme. We treated it as a true gap scheme with no pullers. It was power without a puller for us. The only difference was the front side combinations were working to a front side backer, not a backside backer. So when you went, your gap schemes in power, your front side guys work to a backside backer. When you're working duo, your front side guys work to a front side backer. So center always had to ID the backer away from the duo call to make sure everybody understood that that's where he's going. So the front side knew where they were going. We were always a little bit different than most duo teams. We ran it as our replacement for inside zone. We ran it as a read scheme with a tight A-gap path when we used to be in the pistol. We ran it as a kick or a six-man RPO scheme where we used the H-back as a kick player on the end man on the line. In our three-back sets, we ran it as a blast play where the front side H-back kicked and the backside back wrapped like a power play. So we ran it as inverted veer where we ran it with jet motion and blocked duo up front. So we were never your traditional 21, 22, 12 duo team with condensed sets and cracking everything and blocking everything down. Duo for me was always um, our answer for being able to run, read game, and inside zone because we weren't carrying gap schemes with inside zone a lot of the time because we couldn't get it all taught. So we wanted to keep all of our gap scheme principles intact. So we carried duo for that reason. And then when we became an RPO team, duo became, duo kick, and we would bluff and put an escort guy out for the quarterback. And then we would lock the front side and run ISO and put the H back on the inside backer and throw a lot of RPOs off overhangs. So um, that's pretty much how we ran duo. So probably not the way you're studying it right now, but we never changed if it was odd. If there was a five technique, that was the guy we were going to read. If it was a 4-eye, we were going to block the 4-eye and figure out how we could get to the mic with a fullback or somebody else. So I'm not a big fan of changing schemes week to week or every week with arc calls or different calls based on the front. If the front is something that's not conducive to duo and we don't like it, then we'll just run something else. So, um, uh, could you explain your rules against non-tight front against offense? Well, if it's reduction stuff, it's that's where the duo term with a tight end kind of came into place. There were two double teams. So if you had a tight end and they were a reduction front, you would get a double on a 5 to the play side backer, a double on the nose to the backside backer, and you'd have to lock the reduction side, the 3 and the 5 on the backside. So a lot of times that's where duo came from because you were trying to get two double teams at the point of attack. So if it was a reduction front for us without a tight end, we lost those two double teams because we didn't have a 3-man surface. We played with an H-back. So, for us, it was one of those deals where it wasn't your traditional duo, but we found ways to make it work. And, we were blocking it just like everybody else was blocking duo. We just weren't doing it from heavy 3-man surfaces and wing sets and condensed sets. So it was good to us for a while. There were years where we were better at it when we were really big up front. There were years when we couldn't move anybody and we weren't so good at it. But, it as a gap scheme team, I always loved duo because it was our answer for inside zone. So, if you got for us, if we got reduction against the non-tight end set, we would only get the double on the A shade, and then we would send the tackle down to the inside backer, and we would do something with the play side 5. So, ever faced an offense in high school that does a really good job of giving you guys eye candy and utilize shifts and motions are hard. That's why we like to play with 3 safeties because we feel like we can adjust the shifts and motions a little bit better. Trying to explain to kids what's a shift and what's a motion, whether they snap the ball while a guy's still in motion or if they shift to a formation that we can now adjust the free safety or the read side coverage to. Teaching hybrid safeties that can be on the read side and the away side was a big thing that I learned about 12, 14 years ago when I first started playing 3 safety defense so that when teams – shift, trade, and motion you, if you're just a field front or you just have guys that are always to the read side or the away side, now they trade you and they trade the strength and you get stuck with a weak side safety who doesn't know how to play on those coverages to a tight end set and whatnot. So we've always taught safeties to be hybrid guys. So that's the way we've always done it. Thank you, Stephen. I ran a 4.25 when I played ball at West Liberty and appreciate all your 4.25s. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Tower Dome, how you doing? If it's going to the overhang instead of the reduced outside linebacker, did you ISO with the H and lock the tackles? It depends on what you consider a 4. If it was a true head-up 4, then, yeah, we would lock the 4 and we would ISO. We were always going to block the 6 most dangerous in the back, and we were going to RPO off of overhangs or somebody that is a helmet that we can't get to when we got into the RPO world. So tried not to adjust rules. We tried – we very rarely read 4 eyes and arc release. That's just not something I wanted to do, not something I feel great with. It's actually that, Kovacs, if you're interested. None of it's good for you, but we all have vices. So we insert a tight end versus 30 or 50 in duo. Yeah, I mean, we can, like I said, we can run ISO and insert. We can the school I'm at now, they'll play with a 3-man surface and they'll actually block it like a traditional duo play and get a double team and force the odd front teams to declare how they want to play to a tight end set. So for us, it was always one of those deals where, we had to figure out, hey, hello in Germany, my friend. Hope everything's all right over there. For us, it was always one of those deals. If we saw some type of odd front or something we didn't like with duo, we just don't run it. Or we find a way to formation ourselves into something we like. So we played a lot of, because I didn't play a ton of tight ends, we played a lot of three back sets. So I would put two H backs in the backfield, and that's how I'd get extra helmets into the block. Uh, yeah, I probably wouldn't make it in North Dakota. Although the cool thing is it's probably a lot cheaper in North Dakota than it is here. Um, so we would always add H backs to get extra helmets. That was just our deal. That was my deal as a tempo team. I found it hard finding tight ends. Uh, we always had more H back types. Steve, that's a great question. Depending on splits, we're going to start outside and we're going to work like heck to when two is not to the flat. We're going to work like heck to recreate inside leverage to the post. If the post is a big deal or if the splits are wide, we'll play with inside leverage. But the original thought for me in high school is defending the bubble, defending the perimeter throws outside, the quick game to number, or the quick stand up screens and bubbles and things to number two, and then make people throw the post down the field. We close the middle of the field if we have to at times. So we have some other answers to help us defend that, but we are traditionally a 7-by-1 outside leverage team when we play Palms. I know some people are going to argue that you're going to give up the post. We work like heck every day in Indy right now in our 7-on-7 stuff. I've been coaching the corners and the safeties. So we do drills every day out of our shuffle where if two's not to the flat, if two's under or vertical and the corner has all of one, and coming out of our shuffle, we go, I wouldn't say 45 degrees, but we run like heck to the post and try to get our eyes to the blind spot and force the ball outside on the comeback and all those routes out there and try to not give up the post. But for us, we have to be able to close the middle of the field. We have to be able to do some things with the backside safety. If it's a 2-by-1 set, we have to be able to do some things with the backside safety that allows him to help the middle of the field when we can. So that's just the way we defend it. I would drop 8 king as much as I can. I've tried to heat up the quarterback a bunch, and the good run and shoot teams will get the ball out of their hand and beat you to death. So I would drop 8, and I would vary my coverages: middle of the field open, middle of the field closed. We would still pressure when we wanted to, but we wouldn't. A couple of years ago, I tried to start out pressuring a run and shoot team, and it didn't work all that well in the first half. So now in playing odd front and tight front and stuff like that and 3 high, I would base out of some 8-man drop stuff. I would mix in some Tampa 2 and some 5 under 3 deep, and then our normal split field coverages is how I would approach it. And then depending on what they can do in the run game, we would kind of take a look at it that way. So thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. What drills do you run to warm up your quarterbacks during practice or pre-practice? When I was a quarterback guy, I would always do your traditional start on a right knee, throw a ball to a target. Quarterbacks are only about 8 yards apart, 10 yards at the most. Right knee, left knee, both knees, working on getting your front shoulder to the target, working on throwing a ball to different targets, face mask, left shoulder pad, right shoulder pad. And then I would do some drop drills with them down the line. I would do some drop back stuff where I would force them to sprint straight down the line. And then on a whistle or a clap, they would have to set their feet. And if I had 2 other quarterbacks with me, one would be on the right and the left, and I would clap or blow a whistle and point one way or the other. They had to set their feet and now step and throw and get their front shoulder to a target. So nothing really crazy with warm-up stuff for quarterbacks. If we were read game pre-practice, we would have a period with the backs and the quarterbacks and the centers where we would get some extra snaps and some meshes. So nothing fancy, crazy, different than anybody else. Just making sure they're getting loose, making sure their fundamentals are correct, making sure we're getting front shoulder to the target, making sure that we have a proper grip on the ball and we're not squeezing it to death and tilting the nose kind of away from us and not straight down to the ground. So when we push it back, that wrist gets that position that you want. So it's not flat and cupped like that. A lot of kids, you'll see them, they'll end up with that wrist cupped like that because they point the nose straight down. If you make them tilt the nose a little bit away from them, now when they go to push the ball back, it has that wrist in the position that you want it. So that's pretty much what we've done. We try to get over the top of the post, Steve, if we can. When you're playing Palms, if 2 does anything. One of the other things we do in Palms, if 2 is not vertical, if 2 goes inside or under, we just defend the quarter with the safety and try and take away the post if they're going to run any type of shallows or things like that, and bring maybe the dig from the other side or a post over the top, whatever they're doing. We kind of zone the inside post quarter with the safety when 2 goes under, because we've also been beat by the dirty vertical, which is, where 2 goes under the sand, but he goes over the mic and starts snapping vertical or almost like wide cross stuff. So we hang on two as long as we can, and we defend the post with the safety as long as we can. If two's out, then we've got to go to one, and we got to teach them how to get to one and understand where one's going. Understand, the break point of posts and digs and curls and things like that. It's probably going to be somewhere around 10 yards. So got to open and try and get over top of one, and then we got to work on speed turning to the post. And the biggest thing I think when you're a Palms team is being able to close the middle of the field at times when you think you need to, and then being able to play either some man, one rat, or deals where you can change your leverage with the corner. If you sit in Palms all day, 7-by-1, then they're going to run all their Palms beaters. They're going to throw the ball to the post. So we've been fortunate in the past to be able to close the middle and spin and do some things, and so it's worked out for us. If the splits, now we got to look at dividers and things like that. If the splits get a little bit too wide, then we will play inside leverage. But I still to this day try to defend now screens and bubbles before I defend post routes. And unless I know that the team's got dudes at the receiver and a stud at quarterback, and they're going to throw the post and they can throw it. A lot of times the post is an issue, but the other teams you play can't really throw the post, so it's not an issue if they can't throw it. So mixing in middle of the field close and some drop eight stuff is for us, and then being able to disguise some things and get out of Palms every once in a while. So just different ways to change it up because the leverage is an issue. 11 and 20 personnel, but 8 of the teams 3-4 reduction defense. I'm wondering if duo is worth it. No. Duo is always worth it. I think you should always carry it. I think it's one of those deals where if you're a gap scheme team, it's a great play, even if you're 20 personnel. I loved it in 20 personnel. Yes, we were different than most people running it, but we still ran it. No problem, Steve. We still ran it. We still carried it. And, we just kind of tweaked it to the way we wanted to tweak it for us to be able to carry it. So it had a lot of versatility for us. Like I said, we got the 3 backs and ran it almost like a power play with a H-back pulling. We ran it out of inverted veer. It became a staple for us when we were running RPOs. We would kick the end, insert, take care of we would even wham an inside technique every once in a while. And as long as we could get 6-on-6 and throw the RPOs, we were good. So I would say no matter what you're facing, if you want to be a duo team, it's always worth carrying it. To me, I think it's worth carrying it. Plus, we don't run inside zone. So we have run inside zone in the past. There's been years where we tried to be inside zone and wide zone. I have just not had, in my experience of 24 years of coaching high school football, we've never been a great inside zone team. So I always kind of tend to get away from it and go back to duo. King, I hope everything's all right. Will, the new job is awesome. It's kind of neat right now, just being an assistant coach and helping a program move forward without having to be in charge of everything. It's nice to just play the role that the head coach asks. It's nice to just be a set of eyes in the weight room in the off season and not have to come up with every single workout or program that we're doing. So I am enjoying it right now. Hopefully when the season comes, it's going to allow me to do some extra stuff with Play Fast on Patreon and YouTube, and hopefully with some new offensive things that my offensive head coach, who's the offensive coordinator, hopefully he does some things that I can put on film if he allows me to, and get out there that are different than some things we've done in the past. So it's been really good so far. Being in a classroom is a little bit different. Shirt and tie every day. Teaching health classes is a little bit different, but everybody needs a change every once in a while. I think I was starting to get to a point where it was a little bit redundant. I was getting a little bit stale. So I think the change is good. It's been great for me so far. So I am absolutely loving it. And thank you for asking, sir. Do you think duo can work from the shotgun or doesn't need to be? We've ran it from the pistol. We've ran it from sidecar. I haven't taken a snap under center in probably 20 years or more. So we've run it from every version of the shotgun possible. Sidecar, pistol. You've got to adjust your steps, your message, but we've done it from everything. So yes, it'll work from whatever you want. 7-on-7, 3 high. Normally we'll take a backer out. We don't count in our 3 high stuff. We don't count the mic in any of our coverages. So we'll take the mic out, and that middle safety kind of acts as the mic in coverage. So we won't drop 8 unless our head coach wants us to work on drop 8 coverages and he knows that we're dropping 8. We would never drop 8. If we play 7-on-7 against other teams, we're not going to drop 8. So we work it by taking a Mike linebacker out is one of the things that we do in 7-on-7. All right, 4-3 defense looking to add 3 high. We have the right kids to do both. Did you flip-flop during the game or just flip-flop depending on the team you're playing? You're talking about flipping the front. We actually did play some 4-man front, 3 high safety stuff last year. We kind of bastardize the fronts a little bit to take away the interior gaps versus 2 by 2. So we would either post snap stunt, or we would play. We experimented with some double twos, double fours, which is a really short edge that scares people. But if you're going to be 3 high, I think one of the things you have to do is take away interior gaps and make the ball go to that third high safety and get the ball where you want it. So it's possible to do it with 4 down. We did it and we kept kids on the same side. We did it where we played with a 2 and a 4 and a 3 and a 5, and we stunted the 3 and a 5 post snap. Uh, we did it where we had to check versus 2 by 2 sometimes to take away all the interior gaps, because now you got to realize if it's 2 by 2 and you're playing 4 down, you want to take away both A and B gaps, because you're going to have 2 overhangs for us playing split field coverage, and then you're going to have a middle safety lined up off the back somewhere playing 3 verticals. So, we've experimented with it. I think it's neat. I think it's interesting to be 4 down, 3 high, because everybody that plays 3 high plays it out of the odd stack or broken stack or tight front. So it was interesting for us. I enjoyed it. It's something I would like to take a look at. So it's possible. Yes, you can do it. Tight front versus gap scheme. What are your teaching points with your nose? Do you lag? We lagged originally and played the backside A gap of everything with the nose. I am more now getting into a deal where I think I'm going to play the nose through the center's mouth and out the other side of his ass, and fall into whatever A gap he falls into. I think we're going to be a lot more aggressive with our nose instead of lagging him. I think sometimes when we lagged him, he played a little bit passive. And I think when you're in high school playing shotgun teams, the center's the guy you want to attack. So I think other than movement stuff, when we're pressuring or maybe angling and bringing a fourth, I think we're going to play the nose in our base techniques. We're going to play him through the center's mouth and out the other side of his ass as aggressive as we can. Probably going to play a bigger kid there as opposed to a quicker kid. And we're going to force the double, and we're going to try and knock the center back and see if we can screw some of the gap schemes with pullers. If the guard's pulling or somebody's pulling behind the center, see if we can get some movement. And then I think naturally the nose will fall. He'll probably most of the time fall into the backside A gap anyways, but our backers behind that will have to kind of fix some of that stuff. So we've lagged. To answer your question, we've always taught backside with the nose. We've always tried to lag behind the block of the center. And now we're going to kind of change and be a little bit more aggressive with that. So it depends on what situations are giving us the most trouble. If we are having trouble with short yardage stuff, then we'll practice a lot of short yardage stuff. If we are having trouble, getting off the field on third and medium or whatever it might be, we might practice a lot of third and mediums. If we are having a problem converting third downs on offense that are 3rd and 4 or longer, we might have a 3rd and long period. If we're having some goal line issues, we'll have some goal line periods. So to me, we would always try and work on situations that were giving us the most trouble. Because with our practice plan in high school and guys playing offense and defense, it was very hard for us to work situationally all the situations that we needed to see, like you would in a standard, probably college or NFL practice that has an extra day that we don't have because we play on Friday. And then sharing guys on offense and defense, we don't have as much practice time. So we would work situations that we needed to. Spring ball is a great time to address situational football and work with your kids on different situations. And then once you get into the season, I think it becomes a deal where you have to stress the situations that are causing you the most issues. And if you can find time to get to some of the other situations that you need to get to, then that would be, in my opinion, the best way to do it. The greatest thing now for me is I only have to worry about defensively what I need to handle, and the offensive coach and the head coach now has to gear practice around all that. So it's one less thing for me to worry about. So kind of looking forward to that as well. What coverage do you carry? 3 high versus empty versus bunch formations? What are your checks? We've always been split field, so empty doesn't bother me too much. Our base 3-by-1 coverages don't involve the backside safety. So playing with 3 safeties, we can handle the 3 receiver side with our front side safety and our middle safety or free safety, however you want to look at it. And then the backside safety can handle the 2 receiver side. So we'll normally be some version of what everybody would call stubby or mini to the 3 receiver side, and then palms lock or whatever we need to do. If it's into the boundary, we might play cover 2. To the 2 receiver side, I think the big thing with empty is taking away interior gaps so you don't get a bunch of quarterback runs, forcing the ball. If they're going to try and spread you out, then you need to send the ball to where they are spreading people. If they're empty just to throw the ball, then you don't have to worry about it as much. You can put a little bit more of an emphasis on pass rush, but a lot of good empty teams are going to have some QB runs and some checks in there that you have to be able to take away. So I know some people that are 4 down build in some empty stunts some empty checks that gets them to take away some of the interior gaps. As a tight front team, we've kind of got the interior gaps taken away, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Our Mike linebacker was always a quarterback spy in our three high stuff because we never counted them into coverage. So I think the broken stack three high stuff is pretty good for empty teams. Obviously, it comes down to personnel. If they're really good on the hoof with their guys and they're really good at the quarterback position, with an O-line, it can get some things done. I think empty is always going to be a little bit of an issue, but I think the broken stack three high stuff is, and anything that's odd in general, I think you have more guys to drop. You can drop 8. You can do some different things in coverage. So empty doesn't bother me all that much in our base game plan. I think we can handle it pretty well. I think empty becomes an issue for true 4-3 teams that have to play the Sam linebacker, in a more traditional role. So when it's 3-by-1, they have to bar the backside safety. So now when it's 3-by-2, gives them a little bit more of an issue. But for us, handling the 3 receivers with 2 safeties on the front side, and having a safety that can play 2 vertical, so we can play 3 vertical and not need the backside safety is really been huge for us playing empty teams. And we don't really change coverages in 3 high. We play all the same stuff. We just use the middle safety as an extra linebacker. He's the guy that relates to 3 vertical and 2 back sets or 2-by-2 sets, and then we carry 3-by-1 checks just like we always would. So nothing's really changed for us in 3 high. Bunch depends on what they're doing. If they're bunched to run the ball, you got to make sure you have an edge and you have it supported. If they're bunched to throw the ball, usually some type of box check or some type of 4-on-3 check, or it's first in, first out, first up. Though just simple nail or box rules. You can get a little bit more funky with it depending on what they're doing. If they're bunched and 1 goes behind 2 and 3, you can kind of adjust your coverages a little bit. So you got to look at what they're doing out of the bunch, what they're doing from condensed sets, why are they trying to do it, and then kind of build in how you want to defend it from there. So sometimes, your true pattern match stuff might go out the window, and you might have to match stuff based on first in, first out, and your true palms or quarter stuff may go out the window a little bit. It's all similar in theory, but it's just not your camp rules per se when you have teams that are bunched. So what are you researching and working on this offseason to be a better coach? Also, how we can play D-line a little bit better, how we take on blocks, how we play with leverage, how we keep our helmet where we need it and separate, and getting those guys to get off blocks and not just get blocked and be space eaters. When we're playing the tight front stuff, trying to get the 4 eyes to not get moved and condensed and compressed down so far, trying to be able to hold a point. I've been researching whether or not the 4 eyes want to read the guard or the tackle because we're getting a lot of arc scheme stuff now. So, a lot of D-line stuff, and then just how we can play the 3 high stuff a little bit better. And then I said earlier in the video, how we can, what do we need to do with our coverages and our personnel to go from 3 high, broken stack tight front stuff to traditional 3-3 stack split field. Do we have the kids that can handle it? Do we have a middle safety that can also play free safety role in split field and call the coverage strength? How can we make it easier on our other 2 safeties and our third linebacker that's, in a broken stack is going to be walked a little bit, but when we go back to 3-3 stack, he's got to be in the box. So those are the things I'm kind of looking at right now. Doing a little research on first downs, tackles for losses, how we can generate some tackles for losses against the teams that are a little bit better than us. How we can get them off schedule a little bit, get them behind the chains and do things that we want them to do. So researching last year's film at the school that I'm at and the games that they lost and what they did on first down and how we can be a little bit more aggressive on first down in some of those games. So that's pretty much what I'm working on right now. Any football trends that you like or hate? I like the way everybody's starting to use receiver motion in the run game. We talked about that earlier in the stream. I like the way the game is still evolving into spread teams being able to run the football and carry downhill power runs. I love the fact that while the rules are the way they are, I love the fact that RPO football is a more aggressive version of option football. While you're throwing the ball, but at the same time you are carrying hardcore gap schemes, power counter, things like that. I think some people are getting really funky with counter schemes, getting not only 2 pullers, but 3 pullers with some escort motion and things. So I don't know if there's any, I wouldn't say there's anything I really hate right now. I don't think there's a trend that I hate or anything that I dislike. Right now in the game of football, on the field, I think there's a lot of things off the field that I dislike, but on the field, I think the game's in a good place. I love the way it's being played right now. So first time OC, been a position coach, wide receiver, running back, now become a play caller. Figure out what you want to run. Figure out what you're going to hang your hat on. Don't try to run everything. Carry your, what you think are your 3, 4 best run schemes. Carry what you think are your 3, 4 best drop back schemes. And, if you're going to be an RPO team, a tempo team, figure out how you're going to play. Figure out what your personnel is. Figure out the personnel that is best for the school that you're at. But the biggest piece of advice I can give you is don't try to out scheme everybody and carry 9,000 different schemes. Have a base, have a plan, have a hang your hat play or a hang your hat scheme, and then build things off of that. So for us, it was always power. So we'd be power read, we'd be quarterback power, we'd be power read with jet motion, we'd be power read with toss action, and then and then we would be uh, traditional power with some RPO stuff. So for us, it was always power counter is what we hung our hat on. So don't try to run everything is the best advice I can give you. Can you walk through the gun mesh on duo where the quarterback read is? For us, it would be the 5 technique, no different than inside zone, but it's the front side 5 technique, not the backside 5 technique. So in theory, I think you have to look at the duo play as the reverse of the zone play. I know the philosophy of how you're blocking is a little bit different. The techniques are a little bit different. There's more down blocks than there are scoop overtakes. How you teach the tailback is a little bit different. You're not going to read the first down. You're probably going to read the play side inside linebacker now. If he fits inside, the ball's probably going to bounce. If he is an over-the-top player, you're probably going to want to plug the ball in the A-gap based on, traditional over-front 3 technique. If there's a 3 technique there that you're doubling, if the mic plugs, now the leverage for the tackle, all right, is on a 3 technique, so the ball needs to go behind the tackle. If the mic runs, now the tackle comes off. The guard has leverage, so now the ball needs to stay under the guard. We still read the 5 technique on our traditional duo stuff. It depends. When we were in the pistol, it looked almost like midline footwork. We had to clear the midline. The back's entry point was play side leg of the center, so it was an A-gap run for us because we had to remove it from the 5 technique as far as we could because of the read. If we were sidecar, it changed slightly, but it's usually for us, the quarterback's footwork is very similar to midline. We're clearing that A-gap front side so that we can get the back in the A-gap as tight as we can and get them away from the 5 technique. You got to use smart splits with your O-line so that they can figure out how to get the 5 technique as wide as possible since it is a front side A-gap play. Obviously, it's different than inside zone. The back is not attacking the A-gap away from the 5 technique. He's attacking the A-gap to the 5 technique. So how we had to teach splits to our offensive linemen was always huge. But as far as the footwork for us, it was, the best I can tell you without being able to walk through it or show you, it was very similar to midline for us. So depending on the quarterbacks we had some guys who so if we were running duo to the right, the quarterback would step up with his left foot and then take his right foot and drop it back so that his hips open and he cleared the front side A-gap. Even if we were sidecar, it was very similar. So, if you needed a quick visual, I would say if you're running duo to the right and the back is going to attack the right leg of the center, then your quarterback needs to step to the left leg of the center and then open so that his hips are completely facing the 5 technique. So it's a step. So if this is my left foot and this is my right foot, okay, so if I'm the quarterback and this is my left foot and this is my right foot, my left foot steps up, my right foot steps back, and now my hips are facing the 5 technique and the A-gap is completely wide open for the back because you got to remember you want your back straight downhill, hips and shoulders square. It's not like inside zone where he's attacking the opposite side of the formation. He's actually attacking the front side A-gap. So and then because you're down blocking things and not overtaking him, if he gets away from the front side A-gap, now he's going to lose leverage on where the blocks are, and then he's going to run into down blocks. So if you're double teaming a 3 and blocking a 3 down, all right, and the tackle gets movement on a 3 down and the back is not in the front side A-gap, he's kind of going to the other side. You're blocking everything back like a gap scheme, so you don't want your back going back. So one of the things that happens is your back doesn't really have that bang, bend, bounce mentality of the zone play. You really only have a bang and a bounce. You don't have a bend. The duo play can't really bend back the other way because you're blocking everything down that way. So you don't want the back bending back into down blocks. So the back's got to bang or the back has to bounce, but he really can't bend back the other way. So, the footwork is just repetition like any other read scheme, whether it's power read or regular zone read or anything that you're doing that's a mesh in a read game. It's just repetition. It's figuring out whether you're pistol or sidecar. It's tough to carry both sometimes because getting the back where you need to from sidecar as opposed to where he is in the pistol makes it a little bit tougher on the quarterback. But one of the reasons we also, like the duo play is because it kept all the reads front side for the quarterback. So we would run power read and that would be a front side read. We'd run duo and that would be a front side read. We never had to worry about teaching the quarterback to read anything on the backside. All our reads became front side, and then all our access throws with our wideouts were away from the run game front side. So we had front side reads, whether it was reading five techniques or reading overhangs or reading inside backers for RPO. All our reads were front side, so all our backside receivers were always access guys. So in a tempo world, it built in some real simple rules for us to understand with the receivers and guys that could understand where our access throws. And if you're going to be a tempo team, that's one of the things you have to understand. You're not checking at the line of scrimmage. You're not checking plays. So your quarterback has to get you in and out of the right situations. So you've got to understand how to take access throws. Your receivers need to know whether they're running hitches or slants or fades or speed outs or whatever you got built into your access. You can do whatever you want based on coverage. But for me, it was always very important that we knew where the access was so that if the quarterback had to get the ball, into a receiver's hands because the box was loaded and we had power called or we had counter called and we couldn't block a 7-man front or an 8-man front, and we didn't have enough helmets. We're not a tight end team. Quarterback's got to get the ball out where we need it to. So for us, having front side reads and backside access was always really easy to teach everybody that quarterbacks, receivers, all the kids that I ever had going to a new school, different schools, it was always easy to teach them where the access was because that was sometimes for receivers the hardest part to understand. Do you cheat your money backer to a 30 to the back? If so, in what front bluegrass are you talking? And is the money the mic? Is it what's the front? We split field 3 high. Give me a little more info and I'll try and answer the best I can. 80-20 rolls are good. Yeah. 80-20 is normally pretty good. And, if you can run the ball, it's really good. But again, I would, for me, it's always, have your 3 or 4 best run schemes, have your 3 or 4 best pass schemes, have your screen game and your movement stuff with the quarterback. And, if you're an RPO team, find ways to RPO who you need to while carrying all your base runs and traditional runs. The biggest thing I learned when I was young, I tried to out scheme everybody and I tried to carry, now we're talking about 1999, 2000. We were under center, we were in the eye, and we were trying to carry inside zone, and we were trying to carry power counter and toss and G belly with the fullback and, inside trap stuff. So, my problem was I tried to out coach everybody when I was younger. So I found out real quick that we did a lot of everything and nothing good. So I found out real quick, you got to start getting good at some stuff. Best way defensively to know what alignment maximizes your players. First thing you got to look at is personnel type. Do you have more linebackers and safeties than you do D linemen? Obviously, if you're an even front, if you're a 4-2-5 team, you've got 4 D linemen you got to find. You probably got to find 6 to 8 when you talk about backups and tempo and guys getting tired or injured. So if you're an odd team, you only have to find 3 down linemen. But now you got to find, if you're a 3-4 team, you got to find 4 backers. So now you probably need 6 to 7 or 8 backers. If you're a 3 safety team like we are now, I've got to have 4 or 5 safeties that can play because we're playing 3 of them at a time. So injury, special teams, other things that are going on. So to me, it's more about the personnel of your kids at your school. Do you have more lineman bodies? Do you have more safety bodies? Do you have more linebacker bodies? And then from there, coaching what you are most comfortable with. You don't run odd because everybody's running odd or because somebody tells you to run odd if you don't know how to coach odd stuff. If you're an even front guy or you're a 4-2-5 guy, then you run 4-2-5. And if the personnel is not the greatest, then you find an extra linebacker and make him a weak side 5 technique. You can play him standing up if you need to. You can move him if he can't handle base blocks. You can stun him in the open B gap and force things to go a little bit wider. So, I would do it 2 ways. I would look at the personnel that your school has, and I would look at the scheme or the schematics that you are most comfortable teaching, things that you can not only install, but things that you can fix on the fly. If you try and run something that you're not comfortable or familiar with during the game, when things start to hit the fan, you're not going to be able to fix it. You may be able to learn a base package of an odd front or reduction front or a 3-3 stack or a 3 high or broken stack 3 high like Iowa State, you may be able to learn the base. But then when the game comes and things are happening really quick and you got to make adjustments, if you're not comfortable with that system, you can't make adjustments. So I would be running something that suits the kids, and I would be running something that you can fix, something that you are really comfortable with. And then every year, what you do is you study the things you aren't comfortable with. So if you're an even guy, you study as much odd as you can until you get comfortable enough running odd stuff. And if you're an odd guy, you study some even stuff. And then if you get comfortable enough in even stuff, now you've got a few more tools in your toolbox to be able to do those things. So, to me, you do what's best for you and what's best for your kids. Too high with two apex players with a tight front. The two box backers, do you cheat the backer to a 30 and the away backer to a 10? I've heard this before. If it's 2x2 and we have two apex backers on each side, then we'll just leave the backers in 30s. We won't move them at all. If it's 3x1 and we have to do some things to the three receiver side, if we've got the backside safety that is, a run support player on the weak side and we don't need him to the trips, then we may push the front side backer to a, almost a 40 or a wide 30 and the backside backer to a 10. So 3x1, we might have to push pull. If we're just standard tight front, for us, if it was 3 high stuff, we would have one linebacker and he would be stacked right over the nose, and that would be the Mike. If we were a 3-4 team or a 2 high team playing split field coverages with 2 overhangs, if I had an even balance set 2x2, I wouldn't move the linebackers anywhere. It would look like a traditional 3-2 box. And then the great thing about tight front stuff is those 2 inside backers can play pretty fast, because now they're basically an A gap to C gap player is really all they have to play, because the B gaps are taken away by the 4 eyes. So now one backer is going to play off the nose in an A gap, and the other backer is going to play C gap. So if we were 2 high, the only time we would push or pull the linebackers is probably 3x1, if that answers your question. Yeah, so Carmine, one of the toughest things you got to figure out. So one of the things I'm always trying to figure out is when we start tight front 3 high, we don't count the Mike in any of our coverages. So the Mike is an extra add-on. He's a spy. He's whatever we need him to be, but he's not in the coverages. And then when we drop 8, we try to play the simplest form of coverages where the Mike can just drop to the hook zone of the 3 receiver side. We try not to get into any pattern match stuff when we drop 8 with the Mike, because we don't teach them from day one how to play coverages. And then the interesting thing that we're looking at now is when we go to traditional 3-3 stack, if we want to send a fourth and it's not the Mike, do we now have to teach the Mike coverages? Because the interesting thing about the 3-3 stack when you're playing split field coverages is if you send one of the outside stack guys, all right, the Mike, if you send a strong side guy, the Mike is now on the read side playing pattern match on the read side. If you send a weak side guy, the Mike is now dropping weak side, and he's got to be able to play he's got to be able to play whether you're playing Sky or Hawk or whatever you're playing over there. He's got to now play as the weak side backer. So 2 ways I've done this in the past. When I've sent a fourth, I've played either one rat or some type of man-free coverage, so the Mike only has to be a man player. Or I've played, when I sent a fourth, I played either some version of 3 deep or 2 deep so that the Mike doesn't have to learn the pattern match. Or I've made the Mike the fourth guy that I send, which sometimes in the 3-3 stack, guys don't like that because it takes away the kind of the surprise element of where the fourth is coming from if it's always the Mike. But if I always bring the Mike, now I don't have to teach anybody any new coverages. So, it's tough. Sometimes you got to move the Mike around to bring them off the edge and get them where you want to. But in the past, when I've sent a fourth from the stack, I've opted to not teach the Mike any of our split field rules. I've opted to play either one rat and play man-to-man with a high hole player and a low hole player, or I've opted to play some type of spot drop coverage as opposed to pattern match. And that's one of the off-season things we're looking at right now. My head coach would still like us to be able to send a fourth. That's one of the stack backers. And my concern is the Mike linebacker we're also teaching 3 high stuff for the first time at the school that I'm at. So the Mike isn't part of any of those coverages right now. So we're not teaching the Mike. So we're debating on, do we need to teach the Mike how to play read side and away side? When I say Mike, I mean the middle stack in the 3-3. Um, or do we want to use the Mike as the fourth rusher and run more plugs than we do? The only time we'll bring those other guys is when we 5 or 6 man pressure. So that's kind of one of the things that we're looking at going into spring ball right now. No, I mean it depends on. So for us, when we were playing our one rat stuff, the Mike was usually bracketing. If it was one back, the Mike was going to bracket a back with another backer, and they were going to become the low hole guy. If it was too high, then they bracketed the two backs in the backfield. So we had to teach them how to bracket backs and how to play first to your side and how to play split flow, and so they don't run into each other and cross and everything else. But if he's playing somebody man to man, it would be his man crossing his face. It wouldn't be anybody else crossing his face. If you're talking about like run fits on like a zone mesh or something like that, normally if it was one back, we would be bracketing. So if the back crossed the quarterback's face, the other back would become the man player and the Mike would become a run fitter or a low hole player in the passing game is what we did from the 3-3 stack. So um, when I was the head coach and the defensive coordinator, I opted to not use the Mike in coverage. So the Mike was always a spy and add on, or he was a 3 hook dropper in our 8-man drop stuff. So I opted to go to one rat and play a different coverage in our split field stuff. The school that I'm at now has played split field coverages while sending the other backers, and I think it's a lot to ask the Mike to be able to drop read side, be able to drop weak side. He's got to know more coverages. And then 3-by-1, you end up having to check and send the Mike so that you can't widen the Mike far enough and send the outside stack. So now the outside stack stays and the Mike goes. So a lot of checks, a lot going on. So, but it's interesting you asked that question because that's one of the talking points we're having right now in the offseason between me and the head coaches. When we go from our odd broken stack 3 high back to traditional split field, and we want to start sending a fourth. And the school that I'm at has always been more successful in the 3-3, and they've always been more successful with movement and plugs and sending a fourth. So my head coach is comfortable with that. So we're definitely going to stay and carry that package. We're just trying to figure out how we want to do it now is my bottom line question. Yeah, that's one of the things, that we've done. Like I said, either man free or spot drop. I've always opted not to teach the Mike the pattern match stuff and let him be, because like I said, he's got a pattern match read side and he's got a pattern match or play the away side coverages. So to me, it's a little bit too much for him. So we are trying to shorten our practice by 30 minutes. The end of school bell rings at 2:47. We're not getting an athletic period. We usually finish around. I've never. Rule of thumb for me, I've never tried to be on the field longer than 2 hours. If we can't get it done in 2 hours, then there's something wrong. I think kids lose their attention span. You start risking injury when they get tired and they aren't paying attention. So I would get started as quick as you can. If there's no athletic period, I would do your meetings on the field. I would, if he's big on lifting and film, I wouldn't cut it. You got to find ways to be more efficient on the field. If you're still going to do those things off the field and you're still going to lift and watch film, and I wouldn't cut that out if that's what he is big on. I would cut out things on the field. I would find ways to get more reps. I would find ways to be more efficient. You got to look at your special team schemes and how much time they take. You might want to change and do some things that might be a little bit simpler to teach in specials, so you don't need as much time in special teams. But I would be looking to cut things out on the field that are in the practice plan. I wouldn't be looking to cut out the film or the lifting. You might, again, you probably just want to look at ways to be more efficient in all those areas. Maybe you can't watch as much film. You just watch the things you need to. Maybe you can't do as many lifts. You just hit the lifts that you absolutely need to, or the injury prevention stuff that you need to do. But to me, that's up to your head coach. If you're going to keep the lifting in the film, then I would try and find ways to be more efficient. We've honestly, being a tempo team on offense and the way we try to play, and we're not the fastest tempo team by any means, but we are a tempo team. So we've never had a problem getting reps in practice. We've never had a problem keeping practices moving. We've always kept special teams fairly simple. We're a shield punt team. We are mostly a punt block team. We don't set up a lot of true returns. We're very simplistic in our kick return scheme. So one of the things that adds a little time is we're a muddle huddle team, so we've got to be able to teach each week the formation and the plays that we want to carry in the muddle huddle. But I would be looking at either special teams or individual periods, or I would be looking at shortening some things during the practice to get the most effective time you need. Depending, Samir, on how different the playbook is, the only way to study it is you got to get your hands on it. You got to get your nose in it. If you're doing off-season stuff, you got to be there as much as you can to get those reps. It's never easy to be a new quarterback, changing systems, changing terminology, but it's going to be about the amount of time you put in. And then, to me, it's always about the system. If the system is, excuse me, if the system is taught in a simplistic manner with good verbiage and good terminology and a good pedagogy of how the coaches teach the system, then it shouldn't be that hard to learn. If it's some system that takes a long time to learn in high school, to me, that's tough to do with any quarterback. So to me, if the system is good and the teaching and the coaching is good, it's a matter of how much you want to study, how many reps you want to get. You've got to be there every day. You've got to be willing to show them that you want to be there every day. Um, so yeah, I think flashcards are a good idea, depending on what it is. You study it just like a subject you would in school. So maybe build some vocabulary and some terms you need to learn and make some flashcards and study off that. But to me, it's you just got to be around. You got to be there. You got to be around at everything they're doing. And then I think the bigger deal is how it's going to be taught to you. Um, the better systems are simplistic enough in nature that they can be taught to new guys coming in. If it's something that's that complicated to learn, then every quarterback's probably you're not the only one that's going to struggle with it. So obviously you're the new guy, but hopefully, I don't know what grade you're in, but hopefully you're younger and you'll have time to learn the playbook and maybe be the guy in the future if you're not the guy right now. If you're an older guy changing schools, that's always tough because it's going to be hard to learn if you're a junior or a senior changing schools. So when the way we played, the way we originally played our odd stack stuff, Carmine, our guys were five techniques, and we didn't teach them any different than our five techniques in the 4-2-5. So we were gonna squeeze and chase every inside zone play, every down block, every veer release. We were gonna squeeze. We were gonna spill. Um, so I think for us there wasn't much change with our five techniques. I think we were more probably read and react than we were straight attack. Now, when we play 4-eye stuff, I think we're a little bit more attacking in nature. But when we were playing five techniques, we always had to be able to read and how we wanted to play base blocks. Our really good players, we would let two gap a little bit when there was an open B gap, so they could go under some base blocks and do some different things depending on the type of player they were. But yeah, anytime you can get lifting during the day, that's a huge help. That's one of the things right now at the school I'm at. Um, we have, yeah, yes, Philly. We've two gap, one gap with an open B gap. We've also tried to do it with a three technique with an open A gap. So we've done it a bunch. You just got to have some good linebackers that can fix what's going on and make sure they understand what the two gap, one gap guy is going to do. Um, when I was a head coach at the last school I was at, I was in the weight room 5 periods a day, and it was a matter of trying to get as many players in as we could, so we didn't have to lift after school during the season, and we didn't have to worry about that because we could do it in class. But the school I'm at now only has 3 weight training periods, and that's one of the things they're trying to work on is getting some weight training periods added so they can get. It's a smaller school. It's only got about 1,250 kids in it, and a lot of our best players run track or play baseball. So after school is not really good right now in the off season. So in school lifting helps everybody. I would advocate that at every school I've ever been at and gone to. When we're playing tight front stuff, I want my 4 eyes to be a little bit more attacking. That's probably why we're looking at reading guards and not tackles, because now you start to get that arc release from the tackle and you widen a little bit, and then you're either getting red or you're getting kicked. So I think we're going to be a little bit more attacking in nature with our nose and our 4 eyes in our tight front stuff. Um, the interesting, Philly, that you said that we've two gap, one gap can be played basically by any lineman that has an open gap inside of them. So I know everybody talks about it with ends a lot on the open B gap side and 4-2-5 stuff, but we actually tried playing it with our three techniques also. But it screwed with our linebackers a little bit. When we were playing traditional one gap stuff, it was easier to tell our linebackers where they needed to be based on schemes and block rec. And then the two gap stuff, you had to have some kids that had a little bit of moxie and savvy to them and could be a little bit more patient, because that guy's now, for us, it was a lot simpler probably than a lot of people do it. We were never going to two gap late. It was going to be, if we were going to two gap and we got a base block or an out block, we were going under it. if we got a down block, we were squeezing it, or pass set, we were doing whatever we were doing. So we would very rarely take on a base block, and then when the ball declared itself, dip our head in there late. I mean, yeah, we teach our guys to, if they have their helmet outside, winning in their gap, and the ball declares itself inside, you got to be able to get off and make a play and not just be a space eater. But we didn't really, kind of like the big time college and NFL guys do. We never really two gapped it from a head up spot where we were choosing late which gap we were going to play. It was more of a 5 technique. Anything that works out to you, you can go under. 3 technique. Anything that works out, you can go under. So we've done it with 3s and 5s. Anybody that had an open B gap, try to do it with both ends in a 3-3 stack. We've tried that before also. So I think 2 gap, 1 gap stuff is phenomenal when you can do it right. I think it maximizes your potential to take some things away in the RPO game and how you handle open gaps when you have apex players. To me, it's an excellent theory that people probably need to do more. Run blocking breakdowns. I'd like to see breakdowns of the science of run blocking. There are no channels that do it. Only the small guys get studied, but football historically started with those. Be honest with you, War, I think there's more things out there in the run game than there are, um, as much as there are in the passing game. I think there's a ton of stuff out there on gap schemes and inside zone and read game. I think you're 100. When it comes to defense, you are 100% correct. Very rarely do you get run fits. A lot of times when guys talk coverage, it's always pass coverage. It's never the run fits in that coverage. But I think on offense, there's a lot of great things out there in the run game on run and power, counter and duo and inside zone and wide zone. I think the big guys get overlooked by the public. I think the big guys get overlooked. Maybe, when it comes to fantasy football and things like that. But any good football coach, any good head football coach that's worth his weight in salt will tell you that it all starts with the O-line and the D-line. And if you're not good at those 2 spots, you're not going to win. So I think inside the game with coaches and players, I think everybody realizes how important it depends on what you're looking at. If you're looking at, I think I've seen a bunch of great stuff online with offensive line run play, zone steps, zone theories, cutoff theories, inside zone versus wide zone, double teams on power, tackles that are running, when they're galloping to run doubles on power, the gallop technique. I think, yeah, maybe there's more diagrams per se or PDF files on passing game stuff, but the reason I say there's enough out there in the run game is because high school football is probably 70 to 80% run. So high school football coaches are almost always going to run the ball more so than they throw the ball at probably 80% of the schools I've ever seen in my 24-year career. Not only the schools I've been at, but the schools I played against. It's always been, it's always been 80% run or 75% run or run first, pass second. So, if you just research on YouTube or online, there's a ton of great stuff on gap schemes, power counter, and O-line play and how they block those things and hand placement. And I think you just got to kind of search it enough and look around to be able to find the things that you're looking for. Looking to make the jump from coaching college from high school. Have you coached? I was a graduate assistant for 2 years. I've never coached college beyond that. College is more about who you know than it is what you know. So getting on at college becomes tough because it's a recruiting deal. It's a comfort deal. A lot of guys keep the same coaches with them. When there's movement, guys hire guys that they know or they've worked with before. So the hardest part about jumping from high school to college is usually you have to know somebody. You have to make a connection at a clinic, or you have to make a connection in recruiting, or you have to have a friend somewhere. It's very rare that guys make jumps from high school to college just because of how good of a coach they are, a position coach or a coordinator or a head coach. It's happened before, certainly, but it's very rare that it happens. More so it becomes the connections that you have, the networking. If you're a younger guy, it gets harder to do when you're older. So for me, at 49 years old, that door has probably closed itself a long time ago. If you're a younger guy, it's something that you got to do. You got to network. You've got to go to clinics. You've got to go to the AFCA. You've got to visit colleges and talk to people. You've got to put yourself out there, and then you got to make some connections because the football world is very similar to the business world. It's about who you know. It's about networking. It's about making connections. So to me, I think it's not impossible to do, but it's tough to do to go from high school to college because it's all about networking and connections. So that's the best Could we sometime this week set up a Zoom meet to talk football one on one? I am not on spring break this week. I have to coach and teach this week, so probably be tough for me to do anything on Zoom this week. But maybe sometime in the future, or maybe when my school goes on spring break, if I have a week off, it might be possible to talk one on one. But the problem, Samir, is I don't know who your coaches are. I don't know how they coach it. I don't know what they coach, and I would never want to, as someone who is a head coach myself, I would never want my kids being coached by other people because they're going to coach it different than I do. So, um, I would love to help you to the best of my ability, but as a coach who's been a head coach for 23 years in high school, I don't know if that's the greatest idea because I might teach things different than your coaches teach them. And if you play for your coaches, you need to do the things that they tell you to do, how they do them, not the way I do things because I'm not your coach. And that's, it's not a cop out, or it's not a way to say that I don't want to Zoom or help you, but I'm just giving you my opinion on somebody that's not your coach. I might teach you different. I might teach you how to mesh different. I might teach you how to read things different. And if that's not what your coaches do, that's really, it's not in your best interest because I probably would be hurting you more than I would be helping you. So, yeah, if you're young enough to volunteer at GA, I would go ahead and do that. I GA'd when I was younger, got my master's degree. Um, and then I was in an area that was surrounded with mostly Division III football, and I didn't feel like there were a lot of full-time opportunities out there. So I decided to move to Florida and take an assistant coaching job. And then I was fortunate to get a head coaching job. So I would definitely recommend volunteering or GAing first. And that's how you build your connections. And you hopefully you GA at a place that has a guy that's making moves or a guy that's a name that people want. And then if he goes and he likes you, he takes you with him. That's usually the way it works. That's usually the easiest way to do it. Or if you volunteer somewhere, then you do some work that people like, and then when those staffs people leave or guys get promoted, maybe there's a new coordinator, he likes what you do, and you become a position coach. If you have that chance, Ben, that's the easiest route to take if you're young enough and economically you can afford it. For me, I was a GA right out of college, so it was easy for me. I was 23 or 24 years old and getting my master's degree while coaching at the school that I played at. So it was pretty simple for me, but it was small school stuff and Division I AA non-scholarship, Division III type deals that there weren't a lot of full-time paid positions. So it was hard for me to advance in that setting. And I decided to take a high school job, but that would probably be the best route if you could volunteer um, or you could take a GA spot and then cut your teeth there, make your bones there, and work your way up from there. But if that's what you want to do, good luck to you. Do anything they ask you to do. If it's washing towels or cutting film, breaking down film, whatever you got to do, you do it. You don't ask questions. You just do it to the best of your ability, and you make yourself a value to the program in any way possible. Um, FIU's a little bit far from where I am, bud, but if you get a chance at FIU, it's a good school. They've been doing some good things in the last couple of years, and that mid-major football is now starting to pick up steam. And so obviously you had some good coaches at those programs, and they've been able to move on and go to some different schools. So you if you get a chance at FIU, I would certainly take it 100%. But it's probably 3 or 4 hours from where I'm at, so we would have to meet for a clinic or a vacation more so than being able to help out where I'm at. How would I how would I do what, Samir? One thing I could tell you, Samir, for me, from my shotgun spread experiences, we run a lot of similar theories um, to some wing T teams. We're a gap scheme team. We ran some buck sweep out of the gun. So I think it might be, other than the no huddle stuff and learning terminology, I think it might be more similar to your offense than you think. If it's completely different, then I apologize. Um, I think wing T guys would, if they could throw the ball, they would handle our offense just fine because we actually have a lot of wing T-ish principles in our game, a lot of gap schemes, some buck sweep stuff. So it's actually kind of similar other than the passing game part of it. Hope it worked for you, Ben. I hope it worked better than some of the stuff that um, I think sometimes, sometimes, like I said, you get a little bit stale on your own stuff. And when you take somebody else's ideas and kind of morph it with your ideas, it works out a lot better. So um, hopefully this past season, I've never been on with Coach Vast before. I followed a lot of the stuff he does. I follow a lot of the stuff on social media that he does. But I've never actually been on with Coach Vast. How would you answer his fourth down question? What's the question, Philly? I don't know what the question is. I haven't seen it before, but I think Coach Vast does a lot of great stuff. Oh, congrats, Carmine, going to Baylor. Dave Aranda's a great coach. Be interested to see what they're into now. I know they were 3-4 and tight front and some other stuff for the longest time. I saw them playing more four down stuff this past season. So it'd be interesting to see what Coach Aranda's into now and what they're doing on defense. So if you get a chance to take notes and you can share them, that would be greatly appreciated. Oh, if you went to the state championship, then that's a pretty good deal. So if any of that stuff helped, um, obviously coaches did a great job and you had some good players. If any of the schemes helped get you to the state championship, then that makes me feel pretty good. Anytime you can help somebody else and kind of share the success, you kind of feel like and again, that's why you do it. That's why I do YouTube stuff. That's why I do some other stuff. And, you're trying to just kind of pay it forward and give back to a game that's taken care of me for a long time. So 4th and 9, you're on defense. If the offense gets a first down, they seal the game. If not, you win. They are on a 12-yard line. 4th and 9, you're on defense. If the offense gets a first down, they seal the game. If not, you win. Uh, is there a formation? Is there a personnel group? Is there they're on a 12 going in? 2x2 personnel, 2x2 10 personnel. Um, I would probably drop 8. I would probably, depending on what their best passing schemes are. If it's 4th and 9, I would probably guess that they're not going to run the ball. So I would probably some version of our drop 8 stuff. Whether it's our red zone 2 stuff or you know, if they're a mesh team or a lot of shallow stuff, I might go 5 under 3 deep. I might play a combination of our. One of the things we do inside the red zone that I like a bunch is we play some man cut coverages where we drop 8. We play man to man with our skills, and we let the 3 linebackers underneath just kind of vision and break um, and spot drop underneath. And it helps first screens, it helps first crossing routes, it helps first mesh and shallow and other things like that. Obviously, it's 4th and 12. The game's on the line. You don't want to put your corners on an island and give up fade for a touchdown. You'll look probably like an idiot. Um, can't say that I haven't pressured in that situation before. Depending on the momentum of the game. To me, and I've done this with giveaways before, so I am not going to chastise the question because I've done this a million times. To me, situational stuff like that is more about the game, the flow of the game, the momentum of the game. How did we get into that situation? Did we have the whole lead? Did we have the lead the whole time and we blew it and now we're on our heels? Did we come back to put ourselves in that situation and now maybe we want to seal the deal and put the dagger in? Is it a team that I'm supposed to beat or a team that is supposed to beat us? Or, if I would probably tell you if it's an upset and it's a team that I'm not supposed to beat, I'd probably be more aggressive and I might zone pressure it and play a little bit looser and make them throw it over the top and maybe play 3 under 3 deep, send 5. If it was a big time upset, I might send 6. And since we're at the goal line, um, I might hot drop, spot drop. I'm sorry, hot underneath and add the free safety maybe as a middle dropper and kind of play the corners off a little bit and take away the fade. So to me, the momentum, the situation, everything else, but 4th and 9, I would almost certainly think about dropping 8 and making them throw the ball more than 9 to get a first down or to win the game. If the quarterback wasn't mobile and they couldn't protect it, I might heat them up and send 6. So great question that Bass asked. To me, though, so momentum and emotion and situational based. I've always coached I've always coached everything by gut feeling. I've never really been. Yes, I look at analytics. Yes, I look at statistics. But when I go on, for me as a head coach, when I'm on a field, I don't have a lot of paper in front of me. I just have things that are in my head. So for me, it's always momentum based. It's always home or away, crowd. Uh, how did we get into that situation? Things like that. But that's a great question. He must have a lot of fun. Um, he must have a lot of fun asking it, and he must get a lot of great answers. But I probably took the chicken shit route there and said I'd either drop eight or pressure. That's kind of a maybe a safe answer. Well, obviously, if I drop eight, I'm not pressuring. If I pressure, I'm not dropping eight. So probably not the greatest answer in the world. But my when you ask that question, my first gut tells me to drop eight, whether I was five under or some type of too deep structure and trying to press some guys at the line of scrimmage and disrupt the timing of some things and play some guys underneath. Um, would probably depend on my personnel, their personnel. But like I said before, I cannot tell you that I'm not a two man guy. I've almost never been a two man guy. I've you know now we play versions of it. We play several different cut variations. I've actually had more success for me. We've had more success playing man on top and cut guys underneath than we have playing man underneath and high guys over the top. So, um, you know, not a bad answer, two man. That's what you see. The thing that drives me nuts is when you go to 7-on-7 and all you see is two man. If it's 4th and 9, I get it. But 7-on-7, you see all these guys playing two man. It's like, how do you fit runs? How do you? It's first down in a 7-on-7. You know we got to throw the ball, so you're man under two deep, and that's how you play. A, how do you teach coverages to your kids? B, how do you? For me, 7-on-7 should be about installing everything that you're doing. C, how do you teach kids to fit runs? The antithesis of that is when you see wing T or, heavy 12, 21, 22 personnel teams that you play that run the ball 90% of the time, and you go play them 7-on-7 and they're five wide empty the whole time. It's like, come on, bud, you don't do that stuff. Why would you coach? When you ran GTGY, would you log the second puller? Yeah, we always log the second guy. We always log the spiller and wrap the second guy around the spiller. There were some times we screwed around with A gap power, and if we got logged or spilled, we tried to cram the backside guard, kind of knock out the spiller and take 2 or 3 yards in the A gap. But traditionally speaking, if we had a pull scheme and they logged it, they spilled it, we would log the first guy and we would pull the second. But interesting question, Carmine. That's why we always carried read schemes and buck sweep in our deal. If teams were really hard spill teams and the 5 technique closed really well versus down blocks, then that made it a lot easier to read them. It made it a lot easier to get the ball to the perimeter. If he's a hard spill guy and he gets some type of power veer release inside and he spills, well, now your motion stuff, your jet sweep stuff is outside of him. So that's why I always love carrying power read and toss read and things like that. If that guy is that conditioned to take the air out of down blocks and squeeze and spill, then I don't want to fight his technique. I want to use his technique against him. So buck sweep was always a great answer because we would take our H back and log him and we'd get the perimeter pretty quick because he would spill off of every down block. And then when you carry those schemes, now it makes it tougher for them to spill as hard as they want to spill. So for me, I've always tried to use the technique against the kid. I've never tried to force something to say we have to kick him, we need to kick him. Yes, we're going to try and kick him, but if he spills that hard, we're going to carry some other things to defeat the spill block. But to answer your question, yes, if he spilled, we would log the spill and we would wrap around the log with the backside guy if we could get there. So I appreciate everybody being on tonight. We're going on about an hour and 20 minutes. Great questions. Great when you have no format and no true topic that you're talking about. Everybody can just kind of ask what they want to ask. And obviously you can respond to other people's questions, which is great when we do these YouTube lives. We see mostly spill stuff, Carmine. There are some box teams, but the box teams that we see are more helter-skelter, run around everywhere and have some dudes that make plays. We don't see a bunch of really good schematically based box teams. But we see more spill in the area I'm in, but we box a little bit when we play some man deals and some, I've boxed some things before, but a lot of times the unconventional defenses that are more up the field with some really good dudes, they're really hard to play against because you got your schemes in and you're trying to run read game and they come straight up the field, but the kid's a freak. And we see a lot of really good defensive ends down here. So those kids sometimes when they freelance makes things a little tough. As an offensive guy, I always like playing sound defensive schemes where I could kind of dictate what the five techniques we're going to do and what the overhangs we're going to do. And, either formationally or with things that we were doing, RPOs were easier to teach to quarterbacks. And now that doesn't mean we had, for me, I feel more comfortable, even though I've lost those games. When I play a really good defense that's fundamentally sound and they spill and their coverage structure, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have success, but I feel really good about the game plan going in. And I feel really good about what we're teaching our kids. And then it just comes down to execution and players. When we play the helter skelter teams, there's weeks where we've scored 50 or more, and there's weeks where we've been completely shut down because I've never felt good about those game plans because I have no idea where they're going to be, what they're going to do, how they're going to react to down blocks, how they're going to react in coverage. Sometimes they don't even cover guys; they leave them uncovered, and just kind of weird when you're playing those, those kind of fly by the flavor of the week or fly by the seat of your pants defense. I've always wanted to play a solid, sound, structured defense, and I always wanted to have a game plan built on that. And like I said, not always successful. One of the best teams I've ever played and one of the best coaching staffs I've ever played. I was probably 0-11 or 0-12 against, and I loved the game plan every week we went in all 12 years that we lost. I loved the game plan going in because they were so structurally sound and fundamentally sound that I felt like we had a great scheme going in, and we got close once or twice, but was never able to beat them. But I felt better playing them from a game plan perspective and a teaching perspective. I felt better playing them than I did playing some of the, to me, over the years, the 3-3 stack teams that send dudes from everywhere, they are a pain in the neck to game plan for. They're a pain in the neck to practice against because sometimes I don't know if they know where they're going or how they're fitting. So it's hard to come up with a plan when sometimes the defense looks like they don't even know where they're fitting or how they're fitting. So, but I hope everybody has a great weekend to the rest of their weekend. If you're on spring break, have a good time. If you are in an area, that's getting some bad weather, some winter weather, hopefully it's over pretty soon. And hopefully everybody enjoys daylight savings time. Like I said, I'll be doing more stuff on YouTube and Patreon once the spring starts because I'll have access to film and some different offensive theories with what our offensive coach does. And I'll have more free time not being a head coach. So I look forward to doing more YouTube live stuff and more Patreon stuff and trying to get my clinic back up and running in January or February of next year, trying to get that up and running again, the Play Fast clinic that we did right, the year before the pandemic. And then the next year the pandemic came and we didn't get a chance to do it. So trying to get that up and running again because I think that was a great time. And I think it was a great clinic. It was a great experience. And then maybe some summer camp stuff, Play Fast camps. I haven't done any Play Fast camps yet. So I'm looking into maybe doing some Play Fast football camps. One of the things I got going on, if any of you guys are interested, hit me up on Twitter, Coach Mac 8740 on Twitter. I'm going to start doing for my Patreon site. I'm going to start doing some Zoom conversations. And I mentioned on Twitter that since I can't talk, I can't call it Talking Smack because of the WWE, and I can't call it Smack Talk. I think I'll call it either Talking Mac or Mac Talk, and it'll basically just be conversation pieces with coaches and talking to guys about how they got into coaching and why they got into coaching, and then talking about where they coach and the state that they coach and what they do. And so I'm going to try and do like 45-minute to hour conversation pieces, similar to podcast stuff. But for right now, I'm going to upload it to my Patreon site and start that way. And then maybe in the future, turn it into a podcast deal. Who knows? But if you're interested in any of that, hit me up. I'll put it here so it's at, let me make sure. Let's see, at capital CO. So if you're interested, if you're on Twitter or you're interested in that, just hit me up. I'd like to do the next couple weeks for a little while. I'd like to try and do 2 a week. I think my first one tomorrow is going to be with Tony Schiffman, the guy that runs Hog Chat Football. We've talked a bunch in the past. So I think I'm going to start with him first. We may do it actually tomorrow. So I'm just going to Zoom call. I'm going to record it and I'm going to upload it to Patreon. And The guys that are members on the Patreon side will get access to that. If it's something that people want to see, then maybe we'll turn it into some type of podcast deal. But the podcast deal is a little bit out of my realm right now. I don't think I have the greatest setup for it yet. I'm looking to get a new laptop and then a windscreen and a microphone and some other deals before I do that. And then figure out the technology I need, whether it's Anchor or whatever I need to do to upload it um, to either iTunes or wherever it needs to be. So the easiest for you guys that know how technologically challenged I can be at times. The easiest thing for me to do right now is to Zoom record it and then upload it on YouTube and then upload it on a Patreon. So I'm going to start the first one tomorrow with Coach Schiffman. Hopefully that goes well, and just going to try and do some conversations, kind of just similar to the YouTube live stuff. We're not going to get on a board. There's not going to be PDFs. It's just going to be two guys talking football and talking about why guys coach, how they got into coaching, where they coach, what they're at, what they're doing. There'll definitely be scheme talk. There'll definitely be X's and O's, but you'll have to be an auditory learner if you want to get anything from it, because I probably won't be drawing anything, just like these YouTube lives are. There can be question and answers, but I'm not going to draw or anything. I'll leave that for my YouTube stuff. So if you're interested, hit me up on Twitter. As always, I appreciate what you guys do for me and what you do for Play Fast Football. Stay safe out there. Have a great night. Have a great rest of your weekend. And I will see you guys next time.